Hi, ABL followers. This is Galia Aharoni here. I'm the founding attorney at Aharoni Business Law, a law firm based out of Oakland, California, where we help all small business owners with business, employment, and intellectual property needs so everyone can stay protected. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about cybersecurity, actually, which might not be the most obvious topic for a business lawyer to be talking to you about. But the thing is, every single type of business these days, whether you have an in-store, walk-in store, or whether your business is completely online, we're all storing data online now and on our technology. And so I'm in the business of making sure small business owners are protected. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to talk to you guys about some things that you should be doing and maybe legally have to be doing to protect you and your business. So threshold question here is, why should you care about cybersecurity in your business? So first of all, you personally in your business, you have a ton of information that's private to you. Your personal information, like your social security number, but also things like internal documents that you've created, or R&D kind of things that you've tried, or are working on new products, things like that. That you're not going to want competitors to know or other people to know, or just embarrassing things that you don't want to be made public about you or your company. We want to make sure that stuff stays protected. If you have any employees, you're also going to automatically have a bunch of confidential information that you're responsible for taking care of for your employees, like their social security numbers, their addresses, sometimes their bank account numbers if you're doing things like direct deposit, some of their tax documents, and those are really sensitive and can have really bad outcomes if those are accidentally released. You're also probably going to have a bunch of customer information stored. So things like, who your customers are, what their contact information is, what they're buying from you, all of that stuff could be really bad if it got released for your customer and for you. And also you want to make sure that you have keep your reputation intact, that people don't, there's not a breach that happens and then you lose a bunch of customers or potential customers because you now have a reputation for not keeping good care of your internal information. There is a case that actually came out recently in Pennsylvania that where the Supreme Court found that a private company was liable for negligence because of the poor handling of their own employee information. So stuff like they didn't have adequate encryption, they didn't have good firewalls set up, they didn't have good authentication procedures set up. And so hundreds of their employees had their information released and hacked, and suddenly all of their tax information and their social security numbers and all of that was out in the public. Where it's just ripe for their identities getting stolen or their money getting stolen. So the court actually found that the company was legally responsible for not having done a good enough job protecting that information. And so that's kind of the first case of its kind, but I think that's kind of the first of many that we're going to be seeing where companies are going to be starting to be held legally responsible for taking reasonable care to protect sensitive information, including employee information. So I wanted to go over 10 things that you can do to provide some better security, on your employees' devices and your own personal devices to try to protect that sensitive information. A lot of this happens, especially because we're all working remotely, even if it's checking email remotely. We're not always just, on site checking our work computers all the time, and employees are working remotely as well. So it's just going to be a really quick overview of each of these so you're aware of the options, and I encourage each of you to look into all 10 of these things to figure out how it would work for you. So the first one here is just privacy screens. These are things that are surprisingly, I don't see them very often out in the wild, but they're really cheap and really easy to get. So what they do is limit screen visibility from the sides. So if you're looking straight on to your phone or your computer, you can still see everything you need to see. But if someone's looking at it from the side and you're on an airplane or a coffee shop or something, they can't see as much. They're really easy to install. They're pretty cheap to get. Not all devices have these available for purchase, but most of them do, especially just, they're going to have sizes that fit all laptops and computer screens and then most phones. So I encourage you and all of your employees to use these on every device in the office and outside of the office as well. It's going to cut down on prying eyes. The next one is to make sure that you have covers on all of your webcams. And again, this is for your company devices, but also your employees' personal devices if you're comfortable, if it seems like a requirement for your business. So this is going to prevent webcam hijacking, where people can hack into your computer and turn on your webcam and record you without you even noticing. Um, there are, hardware tools that you can buy online that are like physical barriers to cover your camera, but if you don't want to invest in those, you can put opaque tape, you can put post-its, privacy tape, anything like that that's easy to take on and off and won't gum up your computer. There's a lot of options, and we all have, post-it notes or tape sitting around our office already. So again, I encourage you to keep all of your device cameras blocked all of the time, in and out of the office, and your employees, if you're not using the camera in that moment. Number three is virus scanners and firewalls. So these are really, really important for businesses and business computers. Humongous companies have gotten hacked because they, didn't have good virus scanners or firewalls set up and working. So there is probably some virus protection already inherent on your computer. So PCs and Macs both have virus protection built in. But one thing that's really important is to actually use the software that is available. I think a lot of the time we turn them off or we don't do the scanning, and also we won't keep it updated. So make sure that you're actually using the virus scanners and firewalls that are already on your computer. Keep them up to date, because if you don't keep them up to date, then they're not going to be in the best position to block new viruses and malware that the companies are learning of. So if you do want to buy extra virus scanners, those exist. They're going to cost, at least probably $40 a year. And some of them, they all have different pros and cons. So figure out which one works best for you. But at the very, very least, depending on your business and, what kind of information you're dealing with, at least use the computer, the ones that are already on your computers. To make sure you're protected. If you're handling really sensitive information, I encourage you to invest in even more robust malware protection. Number four is encryption. There's a few different ways to use encryption to protect your data. So first of all, every single computer that you have or that is being used for business at all should be encrypted on its own. So that means that, password should be required to get into the computer. Macs come automatically encrypted. PCs do not come automatically encrypted, and you have to turn that option on. So make sure that option is turned on. This is going to prevent people who steal that computer or who have access to the computer from, it won't prevent them from getting into the computer, but it will prevent them from understanding a lot of the data on the computer. There are also lots of software options for providing encryption when you're sending data back and forth from a device. So things like text messages, for example, are not encrypted with certain exceptions. So there are texting tools like Signal, for example, that is encrypted. So those messages, if they're intercepted, will not be able to be read. I encourage you to use encryption on all of your devices, hardware and software encryption, all the time. Number five is VPNs, virtual private networks. It hides your IP address and provides some additional encryption and security for data coming in and out. These can be surprisingly easy to use just as a Chrome extension or an add-on. I encourage you also to use this. You don't probably have to use it in the office or at home if you have a secure, wireless connection that nobody else has access to. But if you're out and about working or you're on a shared network, turn your VPN on. Number six, passwords. I think you should require that all home, personal, and work phones, tablets, computers, and Wi-Fi, home and office Wi-Fi have good, unique passwords on them. I think this should be a requirement for your employees if they have, phone or remote access to company information, company email, things like that. Don't use the default passwords that are given to you when you create your Comcast account or something like that, because those are more easily hacked. Make sure all of your devices are auto locking after a certain period of time of not using them. And we all know to make sure to keep our passwords as complex as possible, and only use one password per login, and change those passwords regularly. This can be burdensome to do correctly. So there are lots of password managers out there, such as LastPass or One Password, I think is called. that can make it a lot easier. And a lot of these have team tools, so you can use those you can share passwords securely among your team. Number 7 is just how to deal with email. We're all using email all the time, and so are our employees. So if you ever get an email that might remotely be suspicious, make sure you're inspecting it closely. Look at the email address, look at the text. Don't click any links or attachments that come in an email from somebody that you aren't familiar with. And if it's somebody that it looks like it's supposed to be coming from Chase or the IRS, or it might be masking itself as somebody legit. Don't click on anything in the email. Go directly to the Chase website or the IRS website, or call that company directly and say, hey, is this legit? Do I need to do anything? Before you click on anything, to make sure it's real. And of course, make sure your staff really understand these rules, because that's one really easy way for malware, for example, to get in if an untrained staff member clicks on something they shouldn't click on in an email. Number 8, we've got two-factor authentication. So this is just when a company or a device asks for 2 pieces of identifying information instead of just one. So if they're just asking for one, for example, it's probably usually a password. But if they're asking for more than one, it's usually something like, you have to put in your password, but then it also texts you to make sure you have your phone on you. Or another really, common example is just an ATM machine is going to ask you for your PIN and also proof that you have your ATM card. So some tools require two-factor authentication, some don't. Some have it as an option. If it's an option, always use it, always say yes, and make sure your staff is too. Number 9, recovery tools. We want to make sure that all of your data is being backed up regularly. So whether that's to hard drive or to the cloud or both, have some sort of way to have your information backed up in case something goes wrong. If you do lose your device or have it stolen, it's a really good idea to have contact information for you visible on your phone or computer, and your employees as well. So if it just gets lost and somebody wants to return it to you, they know how to contact you and return it to you. There are also apps that help you find your device via GPS or whatever, lots of other tools. And there are also ways to remotely wipe devices if something were to go wrong. For example, if somebody loses their phone and there's a ton of sensitive customer information on there, you want to be able to have the opportunity to just remove all of that information remotely if you need to, in kind of a worst case scenario situation. And lastly, it's really, really important that you have written formal procedures and policies for all of your staff for all of these things. If you're the only one doing all this stuff, it's totally useless. So have really detailed written policies about what your expectations are about how to deal with security, what type of security should be on all of your devices and all of their personal devices and their work devices, and how they should be logging in and accessing information. Train every single person on hire, train the whole team at least annually to remind them what they should be doing. If you have any question about how everybody's doing, you can do an audit either yourself or have an external kind of cybersecurity expert come in and train everybody and look for gaps in your system. And also just internally, as far as legal documents, there are certain things you could do to make sure your employees and people who are working with you understand what's confidential and how to deal with that information, such as confidentiality agreements, trade secret policies, non-disclosure agreements, things like that, which are all things that a lawyer like my law firm, ABL, can help you with. And I recommend having a lawyer draft those for you if you do have those, if you feel like you need those in place. So if you have more questions about any of this, feel free to contact us. Contact information is here. But just remember, it's your obligation as a business owner to make sure that your private data, your employee data, and your client data are all kept under wraps and protected. So make sure that that you fulfill all of your duties and hopefully protect yourself from ever becoming, getting dragged in court like that company in Pennsylvania did. So best of luck to all of you, and good luck with your business. Thanks.